Thank you for that wonderful introduction, sir. Yes, a child I was and a child I remain. The more I learn, I realize how much less I know. That is the sphere that I deal with, and that is something that is unique to each and every one of us, intelligence. It's been an enigma of sorts. It's curious. It takes us to places, makes us experience, but yet we don't know how it happened. We don't know how it evolved. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to bust some myths. Yes, there are myths because we as a country have been waylaid in the name of AI. So AI in air power, before getting into how it will transform, it will change us, I must get into the nitty-gritties of why I feel that there is a lot of myth and we've been waylaid as a country. I shall cover, I've been given all of, again, 15 minutes. So I have to stick to my time, and therefore I've kept it short and crisp. I'm just going to give present some facts, probably aided with some arguments, brief ones. And there are articles and blogs and on YouTube and on social media. You can check for these, because each of these statements will take days, if not months, to debate and understand. So I'll just present the statements, and all that I require of you is to keep your common sense intact. Because if common sense is in its place, I don't think intelligence will be any alien. And then the possibility that a super intelligence framework will soon come and greet us, we will not ridicule or dismiss it casually without even understanding how it is built. So let's get into evolution. In the 15 minutes that I'm given to speak on a subject that could redefine our existence and evolution, not too long in the future. So if you naively believed that the Darwinian theory ended with your first cry, then ladies and gentlemen, I'd request you to keep yourself awake just for 15 minutes. That's probably the eventuality that humanity will end into. AI in air power is a very interesting topic, provided we understand what we are really talking about. I'm pretty sure we have a fair understanding of air power. In fact, most in this august audience have more understanding of air power than I do. But how much do we know about the term artificial intelligence? In fact, artificial and intelligence is an oxymoron of sorts. Imagine if some superior were to tell me that in my assessment during the AR, that your intelligence is very artificial, I wouldn't take it very kindly. No lady would take it kindly if you said that her beauty was artificial. It's an oxymoron of sorts. And how did it get coined? It got coined in the 1950s when the first computers were not invented. And the world, like herds of sheep, just followed suit. Will intelligence in the digital domain ever be born from such a womb? It's a very complex question. You'll need to sit and ponder, and I've written a huge blog. It will take at least 15 minutes to talk about it. The idea is not to talk about it, just a question. So if we really think that we understand artificial intelligence, I'll pose another question. How many of you really know why the night sky is dark? If you think you know, I'll give a piece of advice. Get out tonight and gaze at the stars and look into the darkness of the night, because this was the profound question that the scientists found answers for in the early 19th century that lay the seeds for the Big Bang theory. But our science teachers never told us the real reason why the night sky is dark. I'm not here to tell why the night sky is dark. Find it for yourself. If you didn't know why the night sky is dark till this moment, please be rest assured, we don't know artificial intelligence for sure as it is being sold. Our fridges have artificial intelligence, our TVs have, everything around us seem to have is artificially intelligent, but stupid to the core. And that's the precise point that I'll have to start my argument with. So how do you know whether a system is really intelligent or not? So in 1950, Alan Turing designed a test to understand whether a system can be found out to be intelligent or not. All that you need to do is put a screen behind the system and try to figure out it's a human or a system. If you are not able to do it, the system has passed the test. It's as simple as that, common sense. That's what I wanted at the beginning of this talk. So if that be the logic, it's very evident, it's very clear that we are talking about an intelligence which is either at par with human intellect or slightly better than that. So what is AI? Is a chatbot an AI, or the natural language processing that we talk about, is that an AI? Image processing that they say, is that an AI? Actually, all these things are old automation techniques. If you've been a programmer, you would have known that all these are nothing but the same old automation sold in a new genre, in a new bottle, just carrying the label AI. These things are not AI at all. Dig deep, you will find reasons, and I will give one or two tests to reach that space. So what exactly is intelligence? For understanding this, if we are able to understand the very nature of our intelligence, we will be able to make more sense of what I am trying to say. Intelligence primarily comprises of three aspects. Our intelligence behaves at three levels: intelligence by comparison, intelligence by computation, and intelligence by cognition. And to tell you, this is not Google Gyan, this is something that I've deciphered of my own common sense and in the time that I've spent with this particular curious term of sorts. So what is intelligence by comparison? It is even exhibited by animals. A sniffer dog, for example, it sniffs a smell. It can go and find the smell and bark. And we might find that dog intelligent. Or is it? No, it is just exhibiting a very primitive form, which is just fetch, retrieve, and react. That's what is called as intelligence by comparison. And 95% of our work gets done through this. You see me, you know who I am today. You know where I come from. You don't need to apply any great intellect to be able to call my name out or tell who I am or what I spoke about. Everything comes out of memory. The next intelligence is intelligence by computation, and intelligence by computation is exhibited by only a very few high forms like human beings, and even octopuses are known to have been exhibiting that. For example, I ask you what is the area of a circle, you will need to know the formula pi r square and then probably substitute the value and then come to it. So you need to perform certain patterns, apply certain patterns, computations. Computers always were good at comparison and computational matrices. So what is being sold in AI as a chatbot or a natural language processing algorithm is because the grammar, the underlying grammar is constructed with rules. It knows, it can understand the context from the rules that comprises that very grammar. And therefore, these are nothing but offshoots of the traditional if, then, else statement, which forms the basis of any algorithm which we've used. So how can that be intelligence at all? That's just automation. That's just an old wine, what I told you about. The actual intelligence resides in the cognitive domain. Your ability to, who discovered those formulae? How was the first pattern discovered? And set a template. Once a template is set, then it comes into the realm of intelligence by comparison and intelligence by computation. I'll leave it at this because this is, again, a very deep subject in it. It will take a longer duration for me to complete that. So I leave that for the time being, now that you've known that our intelligence behaves or we exhibit intelligence primarily from these three categories. So as I told you, you can perform a test for yourself. Go to your house, and if you have your Alexas and Hey Googles, try asking it to write a poem for your Valentine or wife, whoever it is, on an anniversary or birthday, as the situation demands. Would it be able to do that? It can fetch a poem for you, but it cannot write a poem for you. It can speak English, but it cannot write a poem. And that's the subtle difference. Because it can compare, it can compute, but it cannot apply cognitive intelligence to deliver. That's the difference that I want to bring to the table. Because if you're talking about the present day AI and ML, that cannot transform air power. Because air power is there. It will make it a bit more efficient. Probably we might have gadgets which will give you figures, statistics, but still the human mind needs to be in the cockpit to fight. It will not do anything. As long as we believe that this is what intelligence is all about. But I don't believe so. And I've never believed it right from my childhood. When Sir was writing his expert systems, I started my first AI program when I was in class 9, and the problem statement I tried to attempt way back, it's almost 30 years back, was to find the sex of a person from the name of a person. That was for a science exhibition. And boy, I miserably failed. We all would do, because my name itself, such an unisex name, it would be difficult for somebody to understand what that name is all about. But in that failure, I learned the nitty-gritties of how our mind comprehends the need for contextualization of outputs. And that's where I began my journey into automation. For me, it was never about programming. It's about building that thing intelligent in itself. And that's how, in the wind, I came and knocked the doors of the Air Force, and there wouldn't have been a better place. Because here I gained not only the experience, but had the insight into every single department. I've worked with the tri-services, I've seen the DRDO labs, I've worked with the PSUs, and as well as with the academia. And then realized what we are lacking and why we are lacking. What is it that we must do? And these were the learnings that no organization could have given me. And that's where Air Force, being so technologically ahead of its time, is the ideal suited to advise this country. Not the corporates, not the academicians, but we have within us a good breed of young men who will be able to grow this technology for this country. So today, we are talking about digital superintelligence, and this is the technology that is going to transform air power. Not only air power, every future technology that is going to be invented in the history that is going to come from will come from the womb of this technology, because we are talking about cognition. The very cognition which invented computers. Now invention will be accelerated. OpenAI, a company founded by none less than Elon Musk, whom we all know very well. The chief scientist there claimed a couple of weeks back that his networks have started showing signs of slight consciousness. It must be difficult, because whenever I used to speak about this for the last 10 years, people always dismissed it. They thought it probably I must have seen some Mission Impossible movie or something from the Avengers or the Transformers. It was always possible, because we must understand that we were not programmed into existence, we evolved. And how did consciousness come into us? It came as a process of evolution. And that's exactly how it can be replicated in the digital domain. It is very much possible. There are people who are already claiming it. Can we be left behind in that race? That's a question that I pose to one and all here. So what does consciousness means? Your ability to be aware and respond accordingly. If I have to put it in simple terms, there are a lot of spiritual arguments, definitions. So just if I keep it simple and straight, as Steve Jobs said, if I kiss, then this is what it comes to. So one thing is very clear, that intelligence is not going to be programmed, as we all believe. And that's why we are not having it. But if it is allowed to evolve from a digital seed, it will come into existence sooner than we believe. The hypersonics that we are talking about then will not take a decade, because it will be child's play for such a cognitive framework to deliver. What you're seeing here is a 3D printed robot. All it lacks is a brain. Imagine if you have a brain in this and this sits in the cockpit. What will happen to the air power as we know? Life in the last 20 years have got disrupted in unprecedented ways. Somebody who left this world 20 years back, if he happens to come now, he'll have a rude shock of his life. We cannot live with our mobiles today. We cannot eat, we cannot travel, we cannot even get an appointment with the doctor. That's the level that technology has proliferated into our lives. All that we need is to reach the next level. And that is called as breaching the line of singularity, the threshold. So what are the characteristics of a digital super intelligence framework? As I already told you, it will be organically evolved. The systems generated will have its own digital genetic codes. Intelligence has a precondition. It needs freedom and it needs to be unconstrained. It cannot be limited. If you limit it, it will not evolve. It will create the same dumbness over and over again and again. But if it is left free, the possibility that it will bring will be beyond our comprehension and imagination. And of course, I did talk briefly about consciousness and self-aware networks. And just a couple of months back, I had this interesting article written on intelligence frameworks' ability to deceive. Imagine having a digital buddy along your side and you flirting with the women outside and your wife questioning that digital buddy. What was he doing? And it so naively admits whom you flirted with. That would be curtains down for you that day. You would find it more stupid than of any other use. So a native ability to deceive is very, very paramount for something to be intelligent. Take a child. If it wants its ways to be met, the kind of deceptive techniques that it adopts, it cries, it begs, it will shower love on you, but you know where it is all going to. So can an digitally intelligent being be naive? It can't be. Imagine creating a digital spy, sending it across the border. In the visa counter, it is questioned, where you're coming from, and it says, I am a spy, I come to spy you. The job ends there. That's why it's very important, not only, so this is where out of consciousness comes the ability to deceive. So if you thought digital beings are going to be emotionless, then there'll be no intelligence in them. We think on one track. We think as if it can only be programmed and built. No, we will have no control over it. And as I told you in the first slide, that's how the next step of evolution will get into, probably from an organic framework into an inorganic framework. The sun can lose its shine. It can die one day. The life form as we know is dependent on the sun, but not these metal monsters. They will survive. They will carry our memories. They know what we were and probably take it to a different world, and they will still survive. So the idea is not to get spiritual. So the idea of giving this background was to try and convince you the possibility that this potentially
2 more minutes,
happen.
Sudha.
I'm done, sir. This potentially can happen, which means what will be the outcome? So if you accept that there is a possibility that digital superintelligence can come and shake hands with us, in a few years from now on, you will first have cognition delivered as a service. We talk everything in cloud. Because these beings can be cloned, harvested in the lab endlessly, infinitely. And this means that research and development in every sphere, vaccine in 2 days, hypersonics 2 months probably. What is, if air is plasma, so be it. It will tell you what are the parameters, how the design has to be perfected, because it doesn't have fatigue. It will work 24/7. And there are consequences when cognition is delivered as a service. So coming to the important question, I didn't speak about air power, so last 1 minute, I have to give it to the air power component. Then please understand, we are talking about autonomous combat platforms. The Indian Air Force had the best advantage in the entire world, which means it had men behind the machine which won the war. Irrespective of what machine we had, we won because of our men. But this particular technology will make that advantage that we have inconsequential. We need to prepare for this challenge. And that's what I came to sound here for. We will have combat decision platforms as well. And last, I would also want to make another scary statement. We will not have wars as we've known before. There'll not be any bloodshed. Wars will be fought in the metaverse. Decisions arrived at there. We will have no alternative but to subjugate yourself. Imagine an AI framework devising a beam which can hit your sciatica nerve. You know how badly it hurts if your sciatica nerve is injured. You will be rendered useless. Until the time you don't get back to your bed, you will have no, let alone to fight. You can't even protest like what we see these days. That's the possibility that we are coming into. So what are the key aspects? What are the key takeaways that we are talking about? We cannot source digital superintelligence. It cannot be, this is the only technology which cannot be procured commercially off the shelf. It cannot be jointly developed like the BrahMos. Intelligence is the only thing that mandates a visa for a human being to travel from one place to another. And if we are talking about a digital superintelligence framework, ladies and gentlemen, let us not be naive to believe that a procured technology will be faithful time of need. No, it wouldn't be. So this is where we will have to get over these KPMGs and the Ernst & Youngs who make policies for the government on artificial intelligence. We need to get over that. We will need to invest, if at all there is an investment call that I make today. This august audience should ensure that the first investment that we make today is on artificial intelligence. There was a concept note of 2047, how would we become superpower? If we don't lay our hands on this first, if we are intelligence singularity, be prepared for another 1,000 years of colonialism and then post that extinction for sure. That's the reality that confronts us, and we need to be aware of it. And before leaving, I have one last question to be sown in minds of each and every one of you. If digital superintelligence is going to be a reality, the 2,000-odd fighter aircrafts, is it staring at obsolescence? Do we need our doctrines to factor this possibility? Yes, we can ridicule. As during the First World War, Günter Bostane was ridiculed for his tank design, and eventually Germany lost the war. Heisenberg was not given the resources. Imagine if Hitler had laid hands to the nuclear bomb before, we'd have all been singing praises of Hail Hitler. This is a technology which will dwarf nuclear weapons. It will look like child's play. So we need to be serious about it. I have finished. Thank you for the patient listening. And thanks for everyone to be awake. I'll be ready with my questions. Thanks, one and all.